The Last Letter of Liberty Hill, Part 1. The Storm over Liberty Hill. The rain came before dawn, sheets of silver slanting across the sleeping town of Liberty Hill. The wooden sign outside the general store creaked in the wind, and the church bell swung faintly on its rusted hinge, tolling once every few minutes as though counting the heartbeats of the storm. Eleanor Whitfield stood at her window, her shawl clutched close, watching the horizon swallow the last flickers of candlelight in the town below. She had been awake since midnight, ever since thunder cracked like cannon fire above the old schoolhouse. The storm had a strange rhythm tonight. Angry, yes, but mournful too, like a memory trying to speak. On the desk beside her lay a single envelope. It was yellowed by time, the edges worn, the handwriting careful and deliberate. To my dearest Eleanor, if you ever find this. It was signed by a man who had been dead for almost 15 years. Her husband, Samuel Whitfield. She had found it earlier that afternoon, hidden inside a false panel behind the old mantel. At first, she thought it was a cruel trick of fate, some remnants of her grief come crawling back from the past. But the date on the letter was unmistakable. April 1863, the middle of the war. The same month Samuel's regiment vanished somewhere near the Mississippi River. Now, as lightning flashed over the valley, she could almost hear his voice again, the low drawl that used to calm her when the storms rolled through Kentucky. She hesitated, her fingers trembling as she opened the letter. The paper was fragile, the ink faded, but the first line burned with life. If this reaches you, my love, then the world did not swallow me whole. There are things you must know, things I could never tell you before the war began. Liberty Hill was never meant to exist. Her heart pounded. She read it again. Liberty Hill was never meant to exist. Eleanor felt the room tilt slightly. The storm outside howled as though answering the revelation. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe. The town had been her world, her refuge after Samuel's disappearance, the place she'd built her small schoolhouse, raised her students, and planted her garden of forget-me-nots. But now in Samuel's voice from beyond the grave came the hint of a terrible truth. This town, her home, was built on a lie. Morning the rain had stopped. A thick fog rolled across the hills, wrapping the valley in silence. The dirt road leading out of Liberty Hill was a river of mud, and the air smelled of iron and pine sap. Eleanor stepped out in her worn boots, the letter clutched in her coat pocket. She needed answers. Her first stop was the post office, a squat brick building with faded blue shutters and an American flag drooping on its pole. Mr. Connors, the old postmaster, was sorting through a pile of damp letters. He looked up and smiled weakly. "Morning, Miss Whitfield. Rough night." "Yes," she said softly. "Mr. Connors, did my husband ever send letters during the war? Letters that never reached me?" The man frowned, scratching his chin. "Samuel Whitfield. Yes, I recall his name. Fine gentleman, fought under General Grant, didn't he?" "That's right." There was a parcel years ago addressed to you, but it came damaged, soaked clean through. Couldn't make out a word. I kept it for a spell, but when the fire took the old office in '68, well," he spread his hands apologetically. Eleanor nodded, hiding her disappointment. "Thank you, Mr. Connors." As she turned to leave, he hesitated. You might speak to the new surveyor up north, fella by the name of James Ashford. He's been digging through all the old maps of this valley. Says the town ain't on some of them. Funny thing, that. Eleanor froze. What do you mean, not on the maps? Mr. Connor shrugged. Says he's got charts from before the war. Whole region marked as federal land. No sign of Liberty Hill at all. Her pulse quickened. The road north wound through the forest, tall, whispering pines and the echo of dripping branches. By noon, the sun broke through, scattering light like gold dust through the mist. She found the surveyor's camp a few miles beyond the mill. Horses grazed near a stream, and a young man in a weathered blue coat knelt beside a tripod, studying a map stretched across a crate. He looked up as she approached, his dark hair falling across his brow. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "I'm looking for Mr. Ashford." He wiped his hands on a cloth and extended one. "James Ashford, at your service." His accent was northern, New York perhaps, educated. His eyes, though, were tired. "I was told you've been studying the maps of this area. My name is Eleanor Whitfield. My husband once served near here." Recognition flickered across his face. "Samuel Whitfield, the name's in the records. You're his widow?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "I knew of his regiment. Disappeared along the river, didn't they? Some say ambushed by Confederate scouts. Others—" He stopped himself. "Others what?" Eleanor asked sharply. "Others say they vanished because they found something they shouldn't have." A chill ran through her. "What do you mean?" Ashford looked around, as though the trees might be listening. Then he reached into his satchel and pulled out an old map, its edges torn and ink smudged. "This is from the U.S. Geological Survey, 1857. You see this area here?" He pointed to a blank space where Liberty Hill should have been. "There's nothing there," Eleanor whispered. "Exactly." "Then, look here." He produced another map dated 1865. The same valley now showed Liberty Hill, established 1863. But there was no charter, no official founding. It appeared suddenly during the war. "Are you saying," she began, her voice trembling, "that my husband might have had something to do with it?" Ashford hesitated. "The report said his unit was escorting a convoy carrying documents from Washington, sensitive materials. Then they vanished, and months later this town appeared. Some say it was built to hide something." Eleanor's hand instinctively went to her coat pocket, feeling the crumpled letter inside. Liberty Hill was never meant to exist. "What could they have been hiding?" she asked quietly. Ashford folded the map, his expression grave. "That's what I'm trying to find out." That night, back in her cottage, Eleanor read Samuel's letter again by lantern light. This time she read further. "If they discover what I've done, they'll erase every trace of it. The valley was never empty. It was a place of refuge long before our maps claimed it. Tell no one. My love, burn this if you must, but remember, beneath the church lies the truth." Beneath the church. Her breath caught. The old church had stood since the town's founding. Its foundation stones were said to have been laid by Samuel himself. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and stepped into the night. The sky was clearing, the stars bright over the valley. As she crossed the silent square, the wooden boards of the church porch creaked under her boots. The doors were locked, but she found the side entrance open. Inside, the air smelled of dust and candle wax. She made her way to the altar, where moonlight fell through the stained glass, casting colors across the pews. Kneeling, she felt along the floorboards. One of them was loose. She pried it up with a broken piece of iron and froze. Beneath the plank was a small metal box, rusted, sealed with wax. On its lid, faintly engraved, were the initials S.W., her husband's. She carried it home, hands shaking. Inside she found a folded parchment, brittle but legible, with the seal of the Department of Interior, and below it, a second letter, unsigned.